Hi and welcome to English with Stuart. Today we're going to have a look at how to prepare for a job interview in English. Yeah, job interviews, they are scary, frightening, without having to do the job interview in another language. So today I'm going to help you with some questions that they may ask you in your job interview in English, and if you're prepared for them, you'll know exactly how to answer them. Okay? And then at the end of the video, later in the video, I am going to explain to you a little bit more about how you can get that job just by having a specific attitude. Okay, so we're going to talk about attitude as well today, but I'm going to start with the typical questions that you are going to be asked in job interviews in English. Okay, so the most common, probably the first question you will be asked will be something like, tell me about your current job role, your current position, your current job. Tell me about the job that you are doing at the moment. So obviously you need to prepare for that and explain a little about what you are doing. Remember to try and keep the information in that relevant to the job that you are going for. Try and relate it into the job that you are in the interview for. Now, it could very well be that the job that you are doing at the moment, if you're doing a job, of course, is not at all similar to the one that you have applied for. Well, that doesn't matter. You can always explain a few basic details about what you're doing at the moment, and then perhaps talk about your qualifications that relate to the specific job that you are in the interview for. Now, another question you'll be asked will be, why would you like to apply for this job? Why are you here? Why are you in this interview? Why have you applied for this job? And of course, that's where you will bring in the information about the experience that you have and the reason why. It's a job that you're interested in, perhaps, and explain exactly your motivations and your reasons. Keep it positive, remember. Prepare some answers as to why that job interests you and what you like about that job. So that question really is all about what you feel and your motivation, okay? Because the next question you'll probably be asked after this will be, what benefits do you believe that you can bring to the company, to this particular company that you are in the interview for, okay? Now, what you have here, of course, is a question really asking you about your abilities, your skills. What can you offer the company? What is it that you've got that the company will find useful? So that's where really you have to kind of sell yourself, okay? You have to provide the relevant information about your experience, whether that is experience in a job or experience through a university degree, perhaps, about exactly what you can offer the company. Now, language is extremely important here, and I'm not talking about English. I'm not talking about English at all. I'm talking about the choice of words. And this is where a lot of natives will go wrong as well. A lot of natives will sit in a job interview and say, I think that I will be good at this job. I think I have the experience. I think I have the skills. There's a problem here. Can you identify what the problem is? Well, it's the word think. You see, the word think in English is my opinion. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% certain. I think is possible. It's not a very strong word. Think is not strong. Now, you want something a lot stronger. How about the word believe? You see, I believe that my experience is exactly what you're looking for. You see, I believe that with my experience, I can offer your company a lot of benefits, for example. So choose the word believe. It shows that you have conviction and that you have confidence in yourself when you are communicating. So even if your English is not perfect, even if you make preposition mistakes, one of the most common mistakes. Preposition mistakes, don't worry. If you use strong, convicted language, you'll probably get the job more than a native would, who comes in with the perfect English, but using weak choices of words. Okay, next question. You might be asked, why do you want to work in this industry? Again, it's very similar to the question about why do you want to apply for this job. You know, this is an industry that you may have a passion for, that really interests you. You don't be shy and don't hold back expressing how you feel about the industry. Be enthusiastic. Show some excitement and enthusiasm. You know, a lot of the time, if you are there and you show some energy, people think, ooh, this energy would be nice in our company, in our office. Yeah, it really does work well. Now, one question I always advise you to be prepared for is to prepare yourself for the question, tell me, so this is what the interviewer might say to you, tell me about a difficult situation that you resolved successfully. And that will often make, you know, the best native pause for a long time. And remember, in interviews, there's no problem pausing for a few seconds, but you don't want to pause for more than 10 seconds because then you don't show your confidence. So prepare for this question, okay? Think about something. Now, yeah, you may have not much experience in the workplace, in the job world. You may not have had many jobs. So you think of an experience in your life that required you to use logical thinking and problem-solving skills and explain exactly what it was that you did to resolve a problem and what the outcome, the result, what the result was. Explain that. It shows that you are a problem solver. And of course, companies love people that can solve problems because there are always challenges every day in your job. You're going to get asked, what are your strengths? And that's great because you could talk about the things you're good at. I type 60 words per minute on a computer. Well, that was when I was in the job world, because I'm a self-employed teacher, but when I was in the job world, you know, that was a great skill to have. But I'm talking 15, 20 years ago. You know, nowadays, I think everybody can type with a good level of speed generally. So perhaps that's not the best example. But you have skills. Everyone has skills. Think about what yours are and emphasize them, explain them, you know. Sell yourself. That's what you're doing. You're selling yourself. Although, towards the end of the video, I'm going to explain that it's not just about selling yourself. But at this point in the interview, yeah, you are selling yourself. You are. Okay, now one of the questions I got asked in a particular job interview, quite a number of years ago now, 15, 17 years ago, was, what are your weaknesses? Now, I didn't expect this question at all. And having spoken to lots of other people, not just students, because remember, I'm coaching students through job interviews. You know, I'm an English teacher, yes, but what I also do is help students with job interviews, because often they'll say to me, Stuart, I have a job interview next week. Can we do a class on how to how to perform in a job interview in English? Because of course they're nervous. Not only are they nervous because it's an interview, but again, I'm going to give you some tips how to remove those nerves at the end of this video. But more importantly, they're doing it in a different language. You know, I live in Spain. I've not been for a job interview in Spanish. And I can speak Spanish, but the sound of having a job interview in Spanish kind of terrifies me, to be honest. You know, in some ways. So I totally understand how difficult it is when you're doing a job interview in English, when English is not your first language. But this question is really important because I got asked this question and I didn't know how to respond. But I was quick and I thought very quickly about something that was in fact quite funny, quite humorous. And I got the job. So if they ask you what your weakness is, what you've got to be very careful here is that you don't want to say something that makes you look bad, You know, you don't want to say, my weakness is my timekeeping. I'm always late for everything. Ooh, no. You don't want to do that. My weakness is I get distracted easily and I can't concentrate. No. No, you don't want to do that either, okay? What you want to do is come up with something that is a weakness, but also something that you can turn into a positivity. Now, my answer, when I got asked this in a job interview, was, what do you consider to be your weakness, Stuart? And what do I say here? And I thought about it again. Like I said earlier, you can pause. Give yourself a little bit of time to pause. But, 10 seconds is too long. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, acceptable. And I did pause for probably about 5 seconds. And I said, you know what? I would say my biggest weakness is my handwriting. And what do I mean by handwriting? I mean the way I write. You can read my writing, but my goodness, it doesn't look very pleasant. My writing is worse than a doctor's writing. They always make jokes about doctor's writing being all over the page. That's my handwriting. I've never had good handwriting. You can read my handwriting, but it looks like a 10-year-old has written. It's just the way it is with me. And I made that comment, but I gave a solution. And the solution was, well, I said my handwriting is pretty terrible, pretty awful. But you know what? We live in the modern world. How often do I need to write things? We can just type it on a computer. Luckily, my typing speed is pretty fast, I said. And they laughed and said, oh, okay. So I turned a negative really into a positive situation. And that's exactly what you need to do. So you may not be asked this question, but my suggestion is prepare for it. Yeah? Because they might. And you want to give them something genuine, but something that you can turn around into a positive. Okay? They may ask you other questions about, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Again, be careful how you answer that. The last thing you want to say is, well, in 5 years I want to be sitting on an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean with a nice cocktail, enjoying life. Well, yeah, that's exactly where we all want to be in 5 years, or many of us. But yeah, no, that doesn't relate to the company. But again, also be realistic. Don't say, oh, I want to be, working in this company because this is going to be brilliant. You don't want to sound false. You don't want to sound fake. But also be careful here, because I lost a job at this point a few years, probably about 20 years ago now. They asked me, where do you want to be in 5 years or in the future? And I showed ambition. And what I didn't realise is that the company didn't want me to have ambition. They wanted someone to do the job and stay in the job without looking to progress. They just wanted someone who was capable of doing the work. And they said at the end of the interview, look, you're very capable of the job, but we're worried that if we employ you, you're going to be here for 6 months or a year maximum, and then you're going to disappear off and go and find another job. Do you know, they were right? And I'm glad that they refused me the job, because I probably would have been bored with that job. And at the same time, yeah, I had ambition. So I'm not going to change what I feel to suit the job if the job isn't right for me. Okay? So that brings me to my top tips. As I mentioned earlier, I would finish this video by giving you some help as to the attitude and the mindset that you need when you're in a job interview. You see, an English-speaking country is very different to a Spanish-speaking one in terms of the culture of work. Now, I'm coming from a point of view, I live in Spain, I've been here for over 4 years, and I come from the United Kingdom, but I think I can probably speak for Spanish-speaking countries in general, and English-speaking countries in general. And what I mean by this is that, for example, in the United Kingdom, and I believe America is very similar, there are lots and lots of jobs available. Whereas in Spain and in other Spanish-speaking countries, there's one job and 100 people minimum going for that job. And I'm talking from the perspective of the year 2023. So things might change in the future. So when you watch this video, the economy might be quite different. However, it's been like this since the beginning of my working career in the 1990s. I've never had a difficulty getting a job. Why? Because there are plenty of them, which isn't true here in Spain and in many other Spanish-speaking countries. So, as a Spanish person, when you go for a job in the United Kingdom or in America, you often feel that you're being interrogated because that's the culture that you would have here in Spain or in South America, because there are lots of people going for the job. So you have to be the best. You have to prove yourself to be a really, strong candidate. But it doesn't need to be the same way in England and in America. That it's a different culture. You're much more equal. The employer and the employee, you going for the job interview, it's a much more equal level. And that will take the pressure off, because one of the worst things when you're in a job interview is the feeling of being under pressure. Well, take the pressure off, because you've got to go into that job interview with the attitude that you are also interviewing them. Yeah, it's not just them interviewing you. They're looking for someone, but because you have options and choices, because there are lots of jobs available, then you are making sure that they are the right company for you. So don't be reserved, don't be shy about asking the interviewer, okay, so, what can this company do for my career? Now, if I suppose if that was asked, if I asked that in a Spanish job interview, and thankfully I've never had a Spanish job interview, and I can appreciate, as a Spanish student, I'm an English teacher, but I'm a Spanish student, I can appreciate how difficult it must be to have an interview in another language. The difference is, if I asked that question in Spain, they probably would laugh and say, well, what are you asking? What are you talking about? But that's a perfectly acceptable question if you are in a company where there is opportunity to progress. Okay? To ask them what they can do for your career, they will actually be quite impressed with that question, because what they're seeing is that you are also making sure that the company is right for you. Because by doing that, they will then realize, well, this is not someone who's going to join our company and then after a few months decide it's not the right company and go to find another job. Because that will, of course, have cost them money. They will have paid recruitment fees to agencies, etc. So the point I'm saying here is that by asking that question, in the interview, you can have an equal discussion. Not only are they going to ask you about you to see if you are suitable and appropriate for them, but you're doing the same to find out if the company is appropriate for you. And they'll realize that you are looking for the match, the correct fit, the correct match, as much as they are, which is exactly equal. And that's what they want. It's an equal partnership. And that's the different mentality that you have in English-speaking countries nowadays in compared to the Spanish-speaking countries. That it is a much more equal environment. So take the pressure off you. You're not being interrogated. You're not sitting in front of the police. You're not in a court case. It's a very much equal environment to make sure that both people, you and the company, are happy with the connection between the two of you. And one other final tip that I'd like to point out, which I think is really important, is a lot of my students say to me, and I prepare job interviews with a lot of my students, with good success. A lot of them get the job because of some of the tips and hints I give them. But one of the major things is I get asked, but what about their accent? What if I don't understand the interviewer's accent? Well, yeah, especially in England, the United Kingdom, because of the different accents with very different sounds. For another video, but there are different vowel sounds in different parts of England and Scotland and Ireland, etc. So what happens if you're sitting there and right at the beginning of the interviewer starts speaking to you and you're, I don't understand what this guy's saying or this woman's saying. Well, this is how you deal with it, okay? Now, obviously, you want to say to them, can you slow down? I don't understand your accent. But you might be very reluctant to say that because you don't want to appear as being rude, right? So there's a way to say it. You say to them, oh, where are you from? And they tell you. Or better still, where is your accent from? And they'll tell you. And you say, well, I've not been there. I've not been to that place, so I'm not familiar with that accent. It's a very interesting accent, and always say something positive. Compliment them on their accent, even if it's almost impossible or it sounds awful. You know, compliment them on their accent, because people like to be complimented. But just say, I'm not familiar with that accent. Very interesting accent, but I'm not familiar with it. Therefore, I don't, you know, I'm having a few problems to understand it. You know, is it possible if you could just slow down a little? And you will find that they will do that for you if you've complimented them. You could even ask them, you know, when you do, where is that accent from? And then say, oh, I haven't been there before. You know, is it a good place to visit? Do you know, people love talking about where they're from. So by doing that, the interviewer will start telling you about where he's from or she's from. That's going to make the whole conversation feel much more relaxed before you've even started the interview. So if you're frightened or scared that you're not going to be able to understand the interviewer, don't worry. Look, as long as you've got an intermediate level of English, then you know you can understand English. If you can understand me with a clear, standard British accent, you're going to understand the interviewer, especially if they speak slowly. Even if they have an accent and a dialect, just ask them to speak slowly. And the other thing is, before I go and finish this video, is if you're worried about your English, don't be. You know, a lot of people go in and say, well, what if I make mistakes? Well, remember, it depends on the job you're going for. But naturally, if you don't have advanced level English, you're not going to be applying for jobs that are heavily customer focused, you know, that you need your perfect English. You know, you're probably not applying for a job like that. If you're intermediate level English, you're probably going to be applying for jobs in an office. You might be applying to work in a laboratory, science laboratory, or something like that. You know, and a data analyst, IT technician, something like that, where yes, communication is important, but you're not going to be spending your entire day using perfect English. So if you make mistakes in the interview, don't panic. You know, prepositions you get wrong, it doesn't matter. As long as you know that you can communicate with native people, then you're not going to have a problem here, okay? You're not here to be trialed or tested on your English skills in most cases. Okay, as long as the interviewer can understand you and you can understand them at a reasonable level, they are more interested in your skill set for the job, for the specific job that you are being interviewed for. So don't worry too much about that. If you stress about your language, you're going to make mistakes. You know, when I'm stressed, my Spanish, it almost vanishes away completely. You know, when I'm relaxed, I can speak much better. Don't worry about making mistakes at all. It really doesn't matter. And to be fair, let's be honest, the majority of English, British or American natives do not speak other languages. So the fact that you can speak English, they usually are quite impressed by that. You know, they think, oh, this person is intelligent. They can speak more than one language, which is more than they can say about themselves, because they probably don't speak anything other than English, and maybe a few little words in Spanish or another language, but not sentences. So don't put yourself under that pressure. So that's all for my tips on how to conduct a good interview. They work. My students tell me this regularly, that they work. But if you have any other questions or even suggestions, then please feel free to put your comments in the chat below, and I can always revisit and perhaps even make another video at a later date. So good luck with the job interview. I hope you get the job, if the job and the company is right for you. And if you go in there and have the interview and the job's not right for you, walk out. No pasa nada. Doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. Okay. All right. So have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on my next videos.